Yo, goons, what's good? Patch notes for season 3 just dropped. These are revised. When they first came out, apparently there were some translation errors, so this is the correct version. And today I thought I would just give my thoughts, my perspective on it. And most of these changes I'm reading for the first time. I don't know of any changes except the ones I saw on Twitter, which were not nearly as many as were in total. So with that being said, let's get right into it. Of course, we'll start with goldlewis, but let's take a look at the general changes first. Okay, let's take a look at the universal changes first. Universal mechanics. So the big theme that they seem to be going with this patch is they want to make burst a resource, essentially. And they want to add new uses for the burst gauge. And so in that spirit, they made it so that burst regens faster than before, and there are also other ways of getting more burst meter compared to before. We'll get into that in a minute. But the big change that they're doing is they're adding 2 new ways to use burst. Wild Assault and Deflect Shield. These both cost half your burst gauge to use, and they're inputted with quarter circle forward or back with dust. That's how you do them. So Wild Assault, if you didn't know, there are clips of this in the season 3 trailer. It's basically like a big lariat attack that has different properties. There are 3 types broadly, and they break down exactly what these types are here. So there's one that has fast startup, and you can combo off of it, you can cancel into it. For example, you can see here that types 1 and 2 can be canceled into other actions on hit or block. I don't know if that means that you can cancel into them as well. Like, for example, you can do like far slash into wild assault or what have you, normals into wild assault, specials into wild assault. My understanding is that you can do that, but I'm not 100% sure. There are 2 types here. So we have this fast startup one that's good for combos. You have this guard crush one on block that leaves you at advantage, and you have this one with invuln. And we don't fully know who has what, as far as I understand at this point, but I think that generally, like, the big bodies have number 3, and numbers 1 and 2, I'm not quite sure how it breaks down between characters. Anyway, moving on to Deflect Shield. So this is basically just like a little shockwave that comes out. While Deflect Shield, you know, it seems like it's something that you turn on. It's like a move, basically. And if you block while that's on, you will push them back further. And I think it's basically like a parry, is how I understand it, because it says it can block both low and overhead attacks, right? And then it also says it leaves you in a vulnerable counter hit state for the second half of the move. So my understanding is that it's like a counter that will cover high-low mix-ups for you, basically. I don't really know if that's how it works, but that's basically how it reads. Their translations are not always accurate. Okay. So here are the universal changes to burst from before. So they made it regen faster, and they made positive bonus give you burst gauge, which is crazy, by the way. And they also made it so that both when you get wall slumped and when you get wall broken, you get a set amount of your burst back. Now this, from what we've seen, is like 30 to 40%, maybe a little more than that. But this is majorly meta shifting, because there were several very prominent characters that routinely use slumps throughout this whole game's history, basically, and those would be Zato, Ino, and Chaos, using them all the time. You know, that pops up multiple times per game, even in multiple sets. I mean, just recently, if you watch Tene versus Sechi, which was a grand finals of VSF, a major just a few days ago, this happened a lot. And now that really doesn't justify the reward you're getting for it, because you're basically giving your opponent a full burst back if you slump and then break, or, you know, if you slump and try to go for slump loops, you're giving them a full burst back. This is huge. This is absolutely huge, and I'm glad they did it. Slumps have been unhealthy for the game since they started. In my opinion, it was a bad idea, and it creates a lot of like very unfun scenarios to play against. So I'm glad they did this, right? But on the other hand, now breaking the wall gives you a huge amount of momentum, since your burst meter gets positive bonus. That will allow you to like potentially start pressure with wild, with wild assault, potentially get out of pressure without having to spend bar, push block, or just generally getting your burst back is huge. Now they also made it so that gold burst gives you positive bonus instead of meter. That's definitely a nerf to gold burst, which is fine. We all know that gold burst was very overtuned and kind of a dumb mechanic, and many undeserved games have been lost to gold burst. I think this is a good change overall. And the change to blue burst is interesting. So because you have these other uses of burst meter, they want you to be able to use blue burst still. They want you to have a reason for it, and so they made it go full screen. So in other words, now to bait burst, you have to commit to blocking. You cannot bait burst and do a move at the same time, which on the one hand, I think a lot of characters had a huge amount of skill expression when it came to being burst safe and being tight and having unburstable combos. But on the other hand, that was like majorly asymmetrically distributed is the way I would put it among characters. Like some of them had to work way harder and sacrifice way more to do that than others. And others were like automatically baby little Timmy burst safe, like Happy Chaos and Ram and May. I would have preferred that they just directly nerf those characters, like their burst safety, which we all know is stupid, rather than do this change, because I think that like optimizing burst safety was a huge part of what differentiates top level play from other levels of play. But this is okay as well. This is one solution. And again, they do need to give you a reason to blue burst now that you have these other resources. And so looks like they did that. Okay. Now here's another universal change that I'm not quite sure I agree with, which is that they removed weight classes. I did not believe that this would happen when we first heard of this change, but it ended up being the case. And so the implications of this are really, really big. If you're not too into the nitty gritty details of how Strive works, basically this just means that combos are completely consistent across characters. Before, most characters would have to alter their routes depending on if they're playing against a heavyweight or not. And also many characters had optimal combos against light characters. But now that's not going to be the case. And in the case of big bodies, that is certainly a nerf, because many characters had to suboptimally alter their combos for big bodies. And that's part of how the game was balanced. They removed that, but it's okay. The consistency, I get it. I think this is a bizarre change. Now, one more thing that is going to be a common theme across characters here that they did is that they made it so that forward movement moves have worse combo proration. So as a starter, they're worse. I assume many of those are going from 90 to 80%, which is a very big difference. That's the difference between like a far slash and a tap dust starter, for example, for combo damage. And they also made it so that Rekka style moves, basically, like Ram and Chipp, they don't give you counter anymore. You can't get like a full combo off of them like you could before. And that's also very big. And one thing they also did all around, which this one I personally don't agree with, is reduce the damage of supers and command grabs. I think that command grabs were committal enough, in my opinion. They were in a fine state in general. There weren't any super problematic command grabs, at least from a damage perspective. Maybe what they did, like Nago Bite, is obviously, best in class command grab. And May's command grab, again, not really particularly the damage itself on the command grab was the problem. It was more like that it just gave you a free burst safe, combo in the corner and took you to the corner if you weren't already in it. But anyway, these are the universal changes. I think overall pretty on the mark. I also don't like the reduction of super damage, because I think that choosing to commit to dump your damage or to dump your meter on super is generally, there's definitely some decision making there. It is certainly not always the best option. And I think to have supers, be in their niche is perfectly fine, but they wanted to reduce that a little bit. And I think there were better ways to reduce damage. A lot of people are saying this, like K normals, many of them should have their proration hit. goldlewis, my character, this isn't really an issue, but like Nago, like 90% starters, there are plenty of 5Ks like this where it absolutely should not be the case. Or characters with better conversion abilities off 5Ks. Anyway, all beside the point. Let's get on to the characters so this video doesn't take a million years. So we'll start with goldlewis, because I main goldlewis. And I have to admit, I'm a little disappointed with the changes. I'm a little confused by one in particular, which is this far slash nerf, but we'll get to that in a second. Let's just go through them one by one. So 2K, it's bigger now. It's good. Nothing wrong with that. 2K could use a little more utility. It was a little too stubby to be what it was intended to be, which is like a neutral check. But the fact that it wasn't made faster is a little disappointing. That's really what he needed. Even one frame would have made a huge difference. Having a 2K that is 8 frames in this game is a massive disadvantage. And that's still going to be the case going forward. That is not the standard, and it makes a difference in many, many spots. And goldlewis didn't deserve that, but it's okay. He'll live. Then they hit him with this kind of odd nerf, which I think is very, very unwarranted and out of left field, which is that they increased the startup of far slash. Now, whether this means 11 or 12, it's bad either way. That's on a character like Goldlewis, like a fundamental neutral tool of his, having an 11 frame far slash is not good. That's tough. And if it's 12, that's real bad. Now they made it so that hopefully, if you hit this on airborne opponents, you can combo out of it. As it is now, if you hit airborne opponents, they just tumble out of it. And that applies a lot when you're running up and hitting people out of backdashes. There's so many times when you wouldn't be able to combo off of it, but you would use 2S for those. And that's actually, that's like the real purpose of 2S, by the way, is to kind of hit backdashes or airborne people and get a confirm off of it. It pops them up. But in exchange for moving that purpose to far slash, they increased its startup. Not a worthy trade-off, in my opinion. Now, 2S, they made it more active, but the total duration of the move is not the same. Or, I'm sorry, is the same. So they basically just shifted some of the recovery frames into the active frames. That's good. 2S needed a buff, but the real buff this move needed was a change in the hurt box shift that it has. It is meant to be a low crush. There are many lows that beat it in the game, and that wasn't changed. Also, the startup wasn't changed. That's another issue with this button. But again, we'll live. And we'll get onto this more in a minute, as we'll see going through the rest of these characters. But the average character got weaker, I would say, in this patch. So the fact that he's not getting significantly nerfed and potentially buffed with these next changes is something to consider. So the air BTs, they basically made it so that they're much easier to hit on the latter half of them. And so like the front half of the BT is going to go faster. Now, I don't, this was an interesting thing for them to do. When we first read it, we assumed they just completely sped up air BTs all around, but they only actually sped them up on the front half and not on the back half. And I think the intent for this was that, like when you air dash in with BTs, you're going to hit them with the back half and not the front half. The front half is going to go off, like it's going to swing past while you're air dashing. And so you're going to end up being more plus than before, basically, because the BT is going to be effectively hitting closer to the ground a lot of the time. But they also, let's see. Yeah, I think they also changed its on hit properties. So there are some clips going around of like Goldlewis being able to pick up close slash off of IED BTs, and that's obviously really, really good. So this could be interesting. But I mean, there were ways we used old air BT a lot, and there are implications for this. Like JD684, for example, a very common frame trap, leaving you pretty plus if you time it right. That's going to be a little different now. The timing for that's going to be different if we even do the same behemoth. And, you know, there were various niche cross-up setups, and the slow active frames were useful some of the time, for sure. Like Air 624 is a bullshit button because of the active frames. So, not necessarily a buff, but in practice, because of the launch, this is probably going to be really nice. Thunderbird. This drone change, I don't really understand what it means. They just made it easier to combo off of the last hit. This is especially nice on level 2 drone, by the way. That might let us get close slash more consistently off of it instead of 5p, which is the way you confirm it now. And that's pretty good, you know, especially if you hit the opponent with a normal and then drone picks up for you. You often really can get a good combo off of that. Now maybe you're able to. So that's a nice change. And then, like with all supers, they reduce the damage with down with the system, but not beam, interestingly. But that particularly hurts us because this is our big cash out super. Typically, you only use it if you land a huge bombo and you're going to kill. We've yet to see how much these supers have been reduced in damage, but for us, this hurts because this was one of the highest damage supers. If it was a flat percentage for every super, we're going to get hit disproportionately because it was the highest damage super in the game. And the way we used it was very important to close out rounds with Goldlewis. And, you know, having Goldlewis potentially back in neutral or not killing is less than preferable compared to many other characters. But that being said, those are the Goldlewis changes. Let's move on. I probably won't go this in depth with most of the other characters. We'll just glance through them. So there's another really big universal change they did, which is that they basically made HTPs not invuln on Wake Up, which is a really nice change. We've all known that that has been bullshit since the game has come out, especially with respect to one character, but we'll get to that later. So with Soul, the idea of what they're doing is that they're trying to make Fafnir more of an approach tool, but they also made it less comboable, both in terms of duration and in terms of ability to pick up on hit, as far as I understand it. And that's kind of scary because I didn't actually change the frame data of it. So now you have a plus 12 guard crush approach tool. I would trade that for the combo on hit you get from Fafnir any day if I'm a Soul player, especially in combination with his wild assault, which lets him really cover a ton of distance and get crazy conversions. So, but he did also receive a nerf in the more universal change of like Rekka style or specials with follow-ups not giving heavy counter hit. In the case of Bandit Revolver, this is a huge deal. Huge deal. Because counter hit Bandit Revolver 1 would pop up a lot, and that would give him close slash Kara HVB. The question is if he can get 5k still. I doubt it, but we'll have to see exactly how this is implemented. If he can get 5k Kara HVB, this isn't the end of the world for him. But that's a serious nerf for sure. Got some other changes to compensate, though. 2k got less startup. This far slash change doesn't mean anything as far as I understand it. Maybe it will let you get run up close slash Kara HVV more often on counter hit because of the reduced horizontal distance. Or maybe it will let you do far slash into HVV more often in the corner. Anyway, they also made it so that 6H does more wall damage, which is fine because a lot of the time if you're using this in combos, you would like for it to splat. You use it as an ender off of gunflame hits sometimes, and most of the time you want a wall splat there. So that's fine. Yeah, these changes we already talked about. They also increased the base scaling of Bandit Revolver on top of the remove counter hit effects, so quite big nerfs to this move, which is good because it was very, very unbalanced. Now for Bandit Bringer, they made it so that I think holding the button probably increases the damage. I don't really know how to interpret this, but most likely this is an insignificant change. Reduce the damage of Wild Throw. I think that's fine in combination with making Fafnir an approach tool because you don't want to be getting plus 12 guard crush from half the screen away and then holding a 120 damage command grab all the time. That's decent foresight by them, I think. They also increased the scaling on Vortex. Kind of an odd and undeserved change, but alright. Reduced damage is okay in this game, especially on Soul. And like I said, Fafnir, they made an approach tool, but they made it so it doesn't launch as high. It has higher scaling on hit. So that's the trade-off. And of course, like all characters, super damage got reduced. In this case, Siren Rave got reduced. That hurts. Alright, let's talk about Kai now. So Kai's far slash got reduced startup, which I think makes absolutely no sense. It's already amazing as it is. And they go off, they nerf my boy, and they buff this character's far slash, which, whatever, they're very different characters, but I don't agree with the logic there. No bias, smile. Now they also made it so that 2S has more startup, which I don't really understand, but that probably shouldn't matter because 2S is mostly a combo tool anyway, but it had its use here and there. He kind of, it's a very good low poke, and having increased startup on that is a downside for sure. But in exchange, they made 5H more of a poke, and that's fine. I mean, Kai's 5H is very good. Making it more of a poke is good. Reduce startup. Now, this JD change, I think, is just a bug fix. And with Stun Edge, they made it so that it's easier to combo off of on hit, as far as I understand. But this, I think, is only on air hit. Yeah, right, on air hit. So, particularly with CSE and Stun Edge, it's giving him better Oki, I think, is the idea. Off of hitting this, even though they're like soft knockdowns on hit. But, that's nice for him. Same kind of thing with air Stun Edge. And with Dipper, this is a big change. They nerfed the startup of Dipper. I don't know exactly what it is. I want to say the number I've heard thrown around is 7 from 5, which is not a massive difference. But they also made it so that, it has worse scaling, which is excellent. Again, this is probably going to 80%. Thank God. Because Kai getting a 90% starter off of Dipper or whatever it is now, honestly, even if it's currently 80%, which I doubt, most low specials are 90% starters, excuse me, was stupid. Dipper RC is stupid. We all know this. It needed a nerf. I'm glad they did, and they redistributed power into the rest of his kit. Overall, good change. My only concern is added launch effect. What does this mean? Does this mean that he'll be able to combo off of normal hit, hit confirms like far slash into Dipper? Because that's pretty scary if so. It's not worth the trade-off of not really being able to use Dipper RC nearly as effectively, but he's also getting Wild Assault. Keep that in mind. So characters are going to be using these new mechanics a lot, and it's going to benefit everyone. So these changes, while a lot of them look like nerfs, or mixed changes, you have to keep that in mind. Future Arc as well, they increased the scaling, fine by me. And DP, HDP, they made it not invuln on Wake Up once again. They also increased the scaling of Dire Class, so they hit all his specials with increased scaling, which is perfectly fine, because if you would get counter hit by this move, sometimes you would just absolutely explode, and it was a little dumb. I mean, Kai for a long time has been underrated by the West, so I think Arxis showing some foresight and initiative here. but also doing a good job of not strictly nerfing him, because that would have been the wrong approach with Kai, I think. So good for them, you know. Overall, mixed changes with Kai, but we'll take it if I'm a Kai player. It's not the end of the world compared to some characters. Speaking of which, let's talk about Mei. So they gave Mei a new move, effectively, right? Because she can get off her dolphin now, essentially. And she can jump off of it, but the dolphin doesn't go through, is how I understand it. That's their new change, but it allows her to like go for these, you know, this I'm very uncertain about how it's going to be, but they definitely hit her hard with some of these other changes. So they sort of reworked her 6K. Special cancelable, but it's much longer. I understand this is like around 28 frames now or longer, which is super reactable. So you're not getting caught by this anymore into RC until you die, which is amazing. We all know that was bullshit. I'm glad they nerfed it. And I'm also glad they left this move with some utility afterward, which is okay. You know, these are good changes to moves that were unbalanced. So 6K change, definitely overall a nerf, but a deserved nerf, while also them managing to make it still hopefully a usable button. I'm saying this now. I hope I don't bite my tongue later and this ends up being really busted. So we'll have to see. Reduced recovery, so this could potentially be plus. I mean, it was already barely punishable. And increased active frames. You can meaty with this. Who knows? You know, it could be a problem, but I'm just saying optimistically this is a nerf, a deserved nerf. This is a huge nerf though, the 6H change. So it now basically doesn't launch on normal hit, which is massive, absolutely massive, and also adds more well damage, so her corner combos will not be nearly as oppressive on normal hits that utilize 6H. Thank God, thank God. And that combined with like the fact you're losing less HP and you're going through the glass but getting your burst meter back compared to before, plus you have like push block to help with this character, yeah, she's going to take a hit from this, right? Definitely going to take a hit from this. Now, J2H, they just made it easier to combo after, presumably. I mean, this wasn't really an issue anyway. For her, I don't really understand this hit, this change, because presumably this isn't on block. This is only on hit, so whatever, not really significant, I think. Now, these are the big changes for Mei. They nerfed Dolphin big time. They made it more recovery on whiff, deserved, absolutely deserved. But the big thing they did is that they reduced knockback on H Dolphin, and they also increased scaling. Both huge nerfs to Dolphin, absolutely huge nerfs and deserved nerfs. Now she's not going to be, you know, nearly as BS when it comes to having super one-sided RPS after Dolphin. That's what made her such a menace this patch, and why many pros argue she was #1 this patch. By the way, it was definitely Happy Chaos, but I could reasonably see the argument for Mei. But this is a huge hit to her, absolutely huge hit. And even with H Dolphin, they increased the risk depletion, and they also increased the scaling. So very good changes there. Very good and deserved changes. These are also presumably going to 80%, I assume, unless they're currently 100. They're definitely not 100. No, that would be dumb. Yeah, they're probably going to 80%, as I understand it, which is good. Definitely good, because this character does too much damage, as it currently is. We'll have to see how... Vertical Dolphin, same kind of thing, by the way. We'll have to see how some of these changes that allow her to move differently are going to affect her. And again, these are also super nerfs, again, consistent across the board, but affects Mei disproportionately, because you get a lot of wall breaks with these supers when there wasn't a lot of wasn't a long combo before, I should say, and that basically made her disproportionately benefit from huge damage supers, which on their own they're already high damage, but like the fact that it's on Mei is even dumber. So overall, Mei taking potentially a really big damage nerf and a huge pressure nerf with that Dolphin change. So these are very good and deserved nerfs to Mei. She'll probably still be solid just because of her movement. She's Mei. She'll probably be like Season 2 Mei in terms of balance, if I had to wager. Now here's an Axel change. These I don't really understand. They don't seem like the craziest thing in the world. They made 2P better. That's good. 2P didn't really have a use. It was really outclassed by 2H, so I'm glad they buffed it. 6H, they increased the wall damage. This seems like universal change with 6Hs, except it didn't occur for goldlewis. So I don't really know. You know, maybe they were normalizing it, especially in Axel's case. This is a really weird change, but whatever, I guess. I don't think it matters. They made it so that when he throws, you're now closer to him, which could potentially let him set up some real, you know, good safe jumps or pokey, or I don't know, maybe it'll be better for him in some manner. I'm sure they had a reason for this. Maybe they just want to keep you closer because you can be more aggro with Wild Assault now. I don't know. But again, I don't think the most significant thing in the world. As a whole, I think these actual changes aren't the biggest. This one is pretty big though. So with Rensen, they made it so that it now knocks you back further, right? Which is really nice. It has a tumble effect on hit, which I think is good. It basically pushes them back further, which is what you want to do with Rensen. What you want to do is push them into a delayed Winter Cherry, a delayed bomb follow-up with Axel, and you'd get a lot of chip and risk and or force FD with that. That's like the Axel game plan in a nutshell when it comes to Rensen. And they made it more active, which means that this can potentially be even more meaty than before. And so Rensen now might be able to be gapless if you get a really good knockdown into a super meaty cherry bomb combined with the extra pushback. It's really very nice. My concern is for this, by the way, with the extra knockback on Rensen, I'm hoping this doesn't apply on block, because if so, there might have been an oversight here that basically makes some characters unable to escape full screen Rensen. Because as it is right now, goldlewis, for example, if he wants to escape Rensen into delay bomb full screen, he has to super jump forward. He has to. And he barely has enough space as it currently is to make it out of there. So I'm hoping that doesn't result in any oversights like that. I doubt it will, but it's just something worth mentioning. So I assume they meant rainwater when they say this instead of rainfall. Now it basically has gravity scaling. That's good. Multiple rainwaters in combos were dumb. He got too high reward off of too little risk for this move, especially given that it's plus. Decent change. Axel Palmer now affected by momentum. I have no idea how this will affect things. Seems kind of like a meme, like you use it to BRC and fly across the world. I don't know. I don't think that this is going to be particularly useful. Maybe for some one vision combos. But yeah, they also reduced his super damage. Again, consistent across the board. So that's that. Now we're on to Chipp. And I'm going to say this now. I guarantee you that out of the existing characters, this is going to be the strongest character the next season. Why do I say that? Basically because this character was already in contention for the strongest in the current version. In contention. Again, I still think it was definitely Happy Chaos and May, but if I had to pick a third, it would be him, me personally. He basically got a slap on the wrist. Now, the only really big change that affects him negatively is that his Rekka can't counter hit anymore. Why does that matter, though? Because this character can actually hit confirm into Rekka Super. He doesn't need counter hit to do that, and it can be done on reaction. So that's basically an insignificant system change for Chipp. It does make the RPS a little better for defenders against him, but he's getting Wild Rush. He wall breaks you off of like any kit. That's what Chipp does. And he's getting positive bonus on his bursts super easily compared to other characters. And obviously this character has some of the most disgusting positive bonus infinites in the game. And when you add like Wild Assault into that mix, who knows what this character is going to be capable of. That doesn't mean it's all sunshine and rainbows for him, though. They nerfed 6k similar to May. Or they basically reworked it, I should say. Again, 28 frames is what I've heard for this move. So no longer a stupid bullshit, extremely hard to react to move. Like unreactable if it's not in your mental stack, which 90% of the time it isn't if you're against a good Chipp. And on top of that, obviously if you were to even keep the old 6k, the slump change made it so that that's also a nerf to this move, because Chipps would also slump pretty often off 6k RC, if you didn't know, in the corner. Very BS, very deserving change. So hopefully, again, this move still has a purpose, but it's not obnoxious. Okay. 5H now is forward advancing. This could be scary. This is a very good button, and I think that was its only downside. Super disjointed. Strong button, high attack level for Chipp. So this is a nice change for him. However, they nerfed his JH. Thank God. Thank God. This was like the most sleeper aerial in the game. I think that there's an argument to be made. It's like top 1 or top 3 aerials in the entire game. This move was absolute BS to anti-air, pretty much for this reason, that it reached so low and hit twice. Very dumb button. I'm glad they nerfed it. They gave JD a wall bounce. I don't know how that's going to affect things. Interesting. Maybe some new routing for him. They reduced the startup of Air Alpha Blade, K Alpha in the air, I should say. This might matter for some like niche mix-ups, but probably not very significant. And when it comes to his Rekkas, they removed the counter hit, and they also made it so that it has worse scaling. But again, this doesn't really matter because you use this for Rekka Super. That's like the really dumb thing about Chipp. It does reduce his reward a little bit on offense, but again, slap on the wrist compared to most characters. Absolute slap on the wrist. Yeah. Yeah, they also reduced the damage of his command grab. It's kind of funny. Yeah, and his super as well. So again, consistent across the board, but Chipp gonna be a menace. I absolutely guarantee this character is gonna be disgusting. Speaking of menaces, let's talk about Potemkin for a second now. So Pot got enormously buffed in this patch. Let's talk about it for a sec. So the biggest buff that he got, and the most needed buff that this character has wanted since launch of this game, and even before that, is that his 5p hits crouchers now. It hits very low. I've been told that it hits so low it can even OTG. So this is now potentially the best 5-frame Abari in the game. He went from the worst 5-frame Abari into the game to the best one on a character like Potemkin, on a patch where he's generating more burst because he's tanky and a lot of damage got reduced. He probably makes really good use of it. You know, he might be able to potentially get guard crush from his wild assault and get a true strike throw. Very, very scary stuff when you give this character better defense. Not only do you give him vastly better defense, you give him better offense too. In some of these cases. Why? Well, they made it so that Mega Fist it now gives a soft knockdown, I think. That essentially means that he's plus on Mega Fist. Currently, he is negative on normal hit on Mega Fist. So this is a massive, basically paradigm shift for Pot Gaming. Not only that, they gave it a launch effect on grounded counter hit. Currently, it does not have that. And if you're further than close slash range, you get a dog shit combo off of it. Absolute dog shit. So this can result in dramatically more damage on certain hits. Mega Fist overall, hugely buffed. They nerfed Slide Head a little bit. They made it so that it knocks the opponent further back. They made it so that it doesn't launch the opponent as high and it doesn't guard crush anymore. By the way, he had a fuzzy off of Slide Head using BRC. So that's going to be gone, which is good because that mix-up was actually disgusting. Just not a lot of pots used it. It's kind of niche. Anyway, the trade-off is it has reduced recovery. So the question is, how does his Oki look off Slide Head? How much reduced recovery? Reduced recovery for this move is scary. Obviously, Slide Head is very, very strong. But if it hits, is that reduced recovery enough to account for the fact that opponents get knocked back further and they don't get launched as high, so they get up sooner compared to before? We'll have to see. I assume it's going to be roughly similar, and overall the effect is he basically lost guard crush but got a better Slide Head. And that's definitely in Pot's favor. Reduce the knockback on hit. That's good. He wants Oki off of that move. A lot of stronger pots use this in neutral as well as a poke. Reduce the startup. Also good. But they made it a little easier to stuff when it's coming out. I mean, that's all right. I feel like this move wasn't often like getting whiffed on during its startup, so this probably won't make a difference. Right? Increase its active frames, which is good. That means that you might more easily be able to catch backdashes off of it. And you might be able to get Oki off of it because it has less recovery as well. Right? Similar to goldlewis 2S, they shifted recovery frames to active frames, but the total duration is the same. Yeah. Same difference though, really. And they also made it so that some, like, I guess there were bugs where this move should be flicking projectiles and it wasn't. I hope this wasn't level 3 drone. I really hope it wasn't, but we'll have to see. HPB got reduced damage, and they made it so Gigantor doesn't lose meter if you get hit out of the startup, which, again, I don't think this particularly matters, and HPB is a meme, so who cares? Okay, Faust. This is going to be a little scary, I think, Faust. Why? Well, he got a new move that lets him store an item as he's playing it out. He cannot react to which item and decide to throw it or not. He has to commit to the store, is what I understand. And that's spooky, because now you could potentially pull a mini Faust and use it for Oki tick throws, or you can control when you use a meteor to go for like stupid left rights, which was already extremely strong. And oftentimes the presence of other items is what stopped Faust from going for that sometimes, like presence of bombs, bananas, whatever. Now he doesn't have to worry about that much. It's strictly a buff to have this move, and it's really spooky, given how he can use some of the items. You know, some of them are very, very good to store. Maybe he'll even be able to set up guaranteed like fuzzies off of the anvil. Who knows? A lot of potential for that. That's really the big thing with Faust is that new move. He also got some changes to his normals. So like 2S expanded hitbox inward. I really don't know what that means. I assume that means it's like the direction of Faust using it more now. It's like longer in total, but the length only went towards Faust. That kind of doesn't matter, but I don't know. Increased damage with 6H. This actually might hurt him a little bit because he uses 6H routinely in his corner combos as a part of his B&Bs. Might change his B&Bs for the worse. Definitely might. Yeah. They made mix a little more consistent, comboing into itself, which was an issue with it, and that's good. You know, it needed that. It was one of the most oddly functional specials in the game, and very inconsistent on hit. And a lot of Faust games have been lost to the variants of this move. Yeah, so here's this new move, and they also changed some of the items. I didn't even know banana had a wall bounce. I'm not gonna lie. But maybe now brings you closer to Faust when you slip on a banana. Maybe he can combo if you go over banana peel. I don't really know what these mean. Increased horizontal travel distance while ascending. Does that mean backward or forward? I don't know. Yeah. And scalpel. I don't know what this changes. I honestly don't know, so I'm not going to comment on it. A new version. Okay. Whatever. Maybe he just got some change to the follow-up of it. I don't know. And of course, they reduced his super damage. Again, consistent. Millia got very few changes. So they made it so that 5k is a better combo tool. So now when you hit it, it pushes them less far back vertically and horizontally. So you might be able to more easily get 5k 6h, for example, when you would have to go for 5k on certain routes. And it's nice for her. Little consistency change. Now, they made it so that Iron Savior has increased scaling. So this is Haircar, and it is a low, and it is 90% currently, like I said before. So it seems like a lot of low specials went to 80%, presumably, from 90. Funny, they didn't touch the behemoths, though. I'm very glad about that. But their big change with her, I think, is this one, that they reduced the recovery of Mirage. So now she can combo more consistently into supers, for example, or she might be able to use it for pressure, which is kind of its intended use, I think. And they also made a Lust Shaker combo more easily, which they gave her 5H Lust Shaker between the two of these changes, so not too sure if that's like a huge thing. They say that, oh, it's safe on block even if they use reversal, so it's a low risk to reset neutral, but like that was already low risk, like that was already basically uninterruptible. So or like that never really got you punished that much. So Winger, they reduced the damage of it, which is kind of funny because like this character's super did not do damage to start with. So L for Millia. My guess is they were conservative with her changes, mostly because they're picturing how the new burst is gonna play out. But like Millia builds a disproportionate amount of burst for the opponent, so I'm a little surprised she didn't get more buffs to compensate. But who's to say how those changes will affect her in particular and her game plan? Maybe she can get knockdowns pretty easily off of it. Who knows? All right, boys, we did it. Zato is dead. Thank the gods. I'm just kidding. They hit this character way too hard. They gutted him. Let's go through the changes one by one and what's most significant. So they made it so that his 5p and 2p have smaller hitboxes. Why? I don't know. Because it's kind of funny. Like they're going back on their own changes. If you didn't know, they changed these to be bigger before. And that's huge. Zato's used those buttons a ton in neutral. They're honestly a little degenerate and a little overtuned. So these changes would be fine if they kind of compensated him for it a little bit. But they really didn't. They reduced the startup of his close slash. And they do this, I think, to make it more standard. Probably 7 now. Who knows? That's nice for him. Nice for Eddie Pressure. He can get some better strings off, I'm sure, compared to before. But that does not nearly compensate for what happened to him. So they made Dust bigger. Undeserved, honestly. His Dust was already huge. Maybe now it can be outside of YRC range more consistently or just at all. And they also made it so 6H does more wall damage. Again, universal, not that significant. Air throw, that's a bug fix. But the biggest change by far is the Eddie life gauge. It's like a little over half as fast as it used to be. Massive nerfs in terms of Eddie recovery, which is great because it was honestly way too BS. Came back too fast, needed a nerf, but they went kind of overboard with it. And they also hit him really hard in his stalling, which is with flight. They made it so that you can't fly for nearly as long as you could. This was a huge way Eddie stalled. Basically before it was, oh, I ran out of Eddie, invite hell, air dash back JP. If that didn't do it, hover for a second, the unanti-airable bullshit, and then I have Eddie back. And if we block when I land with a JH, then even better. I have my turn up again. You have to block my BS. So kind of deserved nerfs, but again, overall, little overboard. He has this side switch with Eddie now, but this really this is during Break the Law, which was already like an ambiguous cross-up if you were using it for a mix-up, right? So this doesn't matter. This doesn't affect him in any way, basically. They also reduce the damage of his specials. So overall, and his super amorphous cash out super again, like goldlewis, that hurts him because he used that to end the rounds. Not being able to do so as consistently is bad. Yeah. And again, zato a character that disproportionately builds burst, so again, that's going to negatively impact characters this patch. And wild assault probably doesn't matter with him too much. My guess is that they were really concerned about using wild assault to continue offense after Eddie's dead and stalling until he comes back to life. Absolutely, if we had old Eddie timer, that would be stupid. And I could see why they did that, but they made it too long. It's a problem with him. This character isn't dead. You're hearing a lot of downplay. I promise he's still going to be around. He's still going to be a character. His offense is still complete BS, still one of the best in the game. But they hit him real hard. Yeah, very, very hard. Alright, so we got some Ram nerfs. Again, also deserved. This character took no risk and got insane reward. Now she takes some risk and she has less reward. The biggest change by far is her dash speed. Why was this character as fast as she was for this long? Right, for Arxes to do a change like this is very uncharacteristic. I have never seen them do a movement-related change, even though it's a way to balance the game they should have been thinking about over time. They finally did, and Ram is the most deserving character of that, by far. Like, we all wondered why she was that fast in the first place. We never, like, no one ever understood this. It was stupid. It made no sense. It made her neutral. Like Little Timmy, baby 1, 2, 3. If you lost it, skill issue. Yeah. So, we got some nerfs on various specials with Ram. So, some of these that matter, Taro got a scaling nerf. So, this is base scaling. It doesn't really matter that much. So, like, if you got hit by a raw Daro, that's basically the only time this is going to have an effect. Bigger change here is her flip. This is her flip. It basically got reworked. Doesn't knock far. It doesn't knock as far back on hit, but it knocks further back on block, which is good. But the biggest difference here is the increased recovery. So this move doesn't leave you plus anymore. She's not at advantage, which is massive, absolutely massive. This was like a fundamental part of pressure resets and positive bonus loops and whatnot. With Ram, they did reduce the startup, so she might still have the positive bonus loops, but on hit, it doesn't give her the reward. No wall bounce. Thank God, that was stupid. Her ability to get insane conversions with this move. And they also increase the scaling if it hits on its own. So, good stuff. Good stuff. But it's basically reworked. It's like faster. So, it's faster, but less good on block, I think, and on hit. That's basically the trade-off. We'll have to see how it actually plays out. I'm hesitant to say Ram is actually like way worse because it very much depends on the specifics of these changes, but overall, definitely nerfs. Like it you know, same thing. Air flip, it's negative now. Or I'm sorry, it has worse scaling, but it basically already had all these effects. This is for the grounded version, which is the version that was BS. The main thing that's BS about the air version is the hitbox, but they didn't adjust that. Okay. Increased base scaling again, and they removed counter hit and nerf scaling on her Rekkas, which is like a double whammy, basically. Because a lot of the time you would get counter hit starters with this move. And not only do they nerf counter hit effect, they also nerf the base scaling. So now, like, RPSing with Ram in her Rekkas is way less risky, which is good. It should never have been that stacked in the first place against her. Like, if you play against a good Ram that can OS when you IB on reaction, it's very obnoxious to deal with, or like is good at Rekka canceling. I'm not going to name names. It was a little obscene. This is a fine change. She got a new move as a result. It's this like slow plus on block, presumably like launcher, that pops up really far on the screen. You use this after like long range far slash and 5H, I think is the idea. Yeah. They also nerfed the damage of her supers, again, disproportionately impacts her because they were like stupid high. Yeah. We'll have to see though how Ram uses Wild Assault. Potentially she can use it to get her swords, to extend her pressure, to build way more meter. And again, she still has insane conversion ability. But one thing I want to mention with Mei and Ram, for example, are the burst changes. Same with a lot of these characters, like these Little Timmy baby burst safe characters. They're getting big nerfs because they can't just do their burst safe combos anymore. Which means that her access to wall breaks and positive bonus is hit pretty hard. Which is very good. Very, very good and deserved. Those characters never should have had that stuff in the first place. We all agree on that. Like, we all know this. Okay, I'm hating a little bit, by the way, but, you know, you get the point. Leo. Okay, so I actually have not read these changes yet, so let's go through them one by one. Okay. So they made close slash hit lower. So presumably this is so like you can't get 6 speed out of close slashes like sometimes what was happening in Evo top 8 or top 6 I should say with Nubenheimer. I think it's like a similar kind of change. They just want that to be less consistent. That would be my guess. Kind of a weird change otherwise. I don't see any other reason for it. Okay. 5H, they increased the attack level. That is an odd change. Definitely a buff. Definitely a buff. 5H was already extremely strong. Increasing its attack level makes it much easier for Leo to harass you on block with that button. And it already was very easy, by the way. Yeah, jump D. I don't know what this means. That it got an additional ranged hitbox. I have no idea. Maybe it was like proximity based before, and now it's not. I don't know. But this is the biggest nerf to Leo by far. His HTP is not wake up invuln. Yeah, massive, massive nerf. Because Leo's HTP, again, we all know, immensely stupid, should never have existed in the first place. Absolutely 100,000% deserved nerf. But it hurts him. It hurts him so bad because there were so many Leo games that you won not only by getting HTP into backturn into win, which is bullshit, but just because of the threat of that option. So many characters have to completely alter their pressure structures against this character, which effectively gave him like the best defense in the game when you consider reward and what opponents have to play around. Not the most versatile defense in the game. That would probably go to Soul. And also not inherently the most rewarding defense in the game. That would be Happy Chaos, because 2p off into wall break, or any hit into wall break. But Leo had the best balance of those two. Now he doesn't. Thank God. Yeah. They also hit him with some base damage scaling on some of his moves here, which is good, which is deserved on his special moves, I should say. Yep, they made it so his... What is this, Fireball? Yeah, I gotta brush up on the name of Leo moves real quick. Yeah, okay, this is Berserker Slash. They made it have worse scaling. And they made it so it doesn't push as far back, so maybe he gets better OK off of it sometimes. Whatever. You know, this wasn't really much of a concern. The scaling on this move. Yeah, this is white. They also increased scaling. Oh, and I guess there was a bug where he wouldn't get pushed back if you FD'd it before. Interesting. Didn't know about it. Turbulence, I assume that's his Fireball. Right. Oh no, that's this move. God, I didn't know the name of this move. Increased travel speed? Like vertically? This isn't like a Fireball, is it? This change doesn't matter. Maybe it changes the frame data effectively for him. Who knows? But I have no idea why that's relevant. Yeah. Kindslid. This is his counter. They made it so it does less damage. Okay, I would have liked to see a proration change to this. I presume this is already 80. Oh, this is 50. It's terrible. This is still too high, honestly. Like the fact that he can go into super off of this. Wow. I didn't know that it was that bad, but yeah. That's the only change. I would have liked to see that. They just reduced the damage instead, which I guess is fine. Now that I think of it, a lot of the damage was coming from the counter itself. It's 74 right now. And not from the super, so... Yeah, decent change there. Same difference. This is his guard crush, I think. No, that's his command grab. They reduced the damage. This is his guard crush, I think. Right? Oh no, that's his super. My God, I'm stupid. I didn't even read it. I didn't even look at the input. I saw during Brynhilder's stance, I thought it was definitely a backturn move. Which I guess it is, but yeah, supers reduced damage. Good stuff. Overall, big nerfs because of the HDP changes. Definitely, you know, unless 5H is giga busted now, that's not gonna be a big nerf to him. You know, the strike throw probably gets better with the addition of Wild Assault. His conversion ability probably gets better, but overall, Leo wants to get into backturn and he wants to win, and he gets into it way less often now because of the HDP nerf. So definitely gonna be nerfed in my opinion. Speaking of nerfed in my opinion, nago. Oh man, they hit him pretty hard. So they made it so 5k launches higher. Good. Hopefully not as dumb combos, but maybe that's a good thing for combos. Just launch high. I don't really know. But they made it so it has more recovery. I understand this is like -2 now. Yeah. And they also made it have a bigger hurt box beneath Nago. Both deserved. One of these buttons that, again, like we've been subjected to since launch. We all know this is bullshit. We all know it needed these nerfs. And I'm kind of sad they didn't hit it with proration nerfs. That's like the big thing that this button deserves. Is getting counter hit 5k, especially when they're high blood and losing like 50%, is dumb. But they made it so you can't special cancel a 6H. So that's not hopefully going to be as big of a thing, because that was a big culprit, like 5k, 6H, or 5k, 6H, just doing like half your HP. Was stupid. Yeah, they reduced the recovery of 6k though. That's an interesting one, because this move is already very low recovery, and this kind of adds to the game of like, what's he going to do? Is he going to cancel? Is he going to threaten the frame trap into DP? Or is he going to bite? I know Nubenheimer is going to like this change if he sticks with Nago. Close slash, same kind of thing with Leo. I think their idea here is make it not really 6Pable, I think. That would be my guess, but probably not a very significant change. Maybe for Nago this matters more, but who knows. Yeah, so they reworked 6H on Nago. So they made it so ground bounces on normal hit. We don't know what they can combo into off of that. We don't know yet. They made it so that it no longer soft knockdowns. So presumably it hard knockdowns if you don't do it. I don't know. Like no longer triggers grounded tech on normal hit. If it no longer triggers grounded tech, either they stay standing or they get hard knockdowns. But the fact that there's a ground bounce makes me think it hard knockdowns on normal hit, which is kind of good, I guess, but you're not going to be normal hitting this too much. And you can't special cancel it. So even if you do normal hit it, the question is how much Oki do you get? Yeah. But the biggest change to this by far is that they added guard crush. And right now this move is 6 active frames and -1. So if you can hit it on the 3rd active frame or later, you're plus, and they're guard crushed. And plus guard crush is a broken combo on a character with a command grab. By the way, they didn't hit the damage on his command grab for whatever reason. They do on like all the other ones, but not his, and whatever, I guess. In any case, it could be very scary. These changes, they very much depend on how consistently he can get plus 6H Oki in bite range. If that is consistent, this is overall a buff for Nago. Absolutely, that would be insane if we got regular access to that, even given that they increased scaling on Beyblade and on DP, and they reduced its super damage. Yeah. One thing they did that's interesting is they made Beyblade a low. This is potentially very, very scary. Having a neutral skip that is a low. Anyone has played any other fighting game, they should understand the potency of that. That's a huge buff to this move. Having less scaling is something, you know. But they also increase its knockback, I think is how I understand this. If you got a hit out of it, so if you can't get close slash anymore off of this, that's like a huge nerf. That's a massive nerf, and that's potentially the case as I understand it, right? Okay, and DP, they also gave it, they hit it with some increased scaling, which is good. But they made it so the second hit is an overhead. So like, can Nago high-low mix up you off of certain knockdowns in the corner? Like as it was right now, he had a bite frame kill with like DP1 into DP2 or bite. And now he can make that a high-low, I think, probably with DP1 into 2K. But the thing is, 2K is less scary as well, because 2K 2D into 6H, OTG 6H is not really going to be a thing anymore. And that basically is going to hit his blood management really hard, and it's going to hit his damage really hard. He got a lot of damage off of that. So if they're not OTGing with it consistently anymore, that's a big change for him. Yeah, overall nerfs, I would say. But interesting changes. It all comes down to the 6H change. And if he can get, like guard crush strike throw with wild assault consistently, that's also a concern. Like we have to assume that they're preemptively changing things out of an understanding of what wild assault is going to do to the game. Geo got some interesting changes. So they made it so her 214K now doesn't hard knockdown, which is a huge nerf. That is massive. It gives a soft knockdown now, and that's pretty bad. Yeah, that's definitely pretty bad. But I don't know if they made it so that you can combo off of it. Like that would be this change. I presume not, because that would definitely like be something they mentioned on normal hit. That would be even better than a hard knockdown. But again, I don't think they did that. I'm not really sure what the idea is behind this change. It's probably just to adjust the Oki now that it's a soft knockdown. Like the way that you adjust how plus a soft knockdown is directly by the launch and the recovery of the move. So looks like they opted to hit the launch trajectory of it in order to get it where they want it to be. Yeah, they increased the scaling of 236K. That's okay. That move was a neutral skip. It didn't deserve to have good scaling in the first place. In my opinion, neutral skips don't. She got this new move though. That's a command dash. Shabe, I think is probably how it's pronounced. Now that's shave there. Anyway, this is like a command dash that powers up her specials, so I don't know how they're going to be powered up. I don't know if you get like a hard knockdown back off of this, I don't know how often you can combo into it. This is a very big wild card. We don't really know how this is going to be implemented, but potentially big buffs. Potentially big buffs. Yeah. And they reduced the launch height a flip, so maybe like there's less oki if you get hit by it, I guess. I don't really know. I'm not really sure if this change is significant. From what I can tell, it might not be. But yeah, it all comes down to this new move. But this nerf is definitely pretty big. But she didn't get really other nerfs. And again, Wild Assault, going to benefit rushdown characters for sure. So potentially Geo coming out a winner on this patch. I think I'm going to say that cautiously. She was already very strong, by the way. This character could end up being a menace with these changes potentially. It very much depends on this new move. Let's move on to Anji changes. So 6H, like all the other 6Hs, or most of them, it has more wall damage now. And these are some big nerfs. Particularly, Fujin doesn't have counter hit effect anymore, and it doesn't have as good scaling. Undeserved. Absolutely, that is a huge hit to Anji, and very out of left field. I don't think anyone was expecting that. They made it so that Shin, which is like his fan toss, he can now control the distance with the input, and if that makes it harder for some characters to punish it on startup, that could be really good. I don't know why you would ever want to be closer with this. Maybe like as a neutral tool if you're just randomly canceling into it, or like off a butterfly. Okay, maybe that lets him set up some new stuff. I don't know. But an interesting change nonetheless. So they reduced the recovery of the jump in. That's good. That move sucked. But the big nerfs that they did here is they removed the counter hit on Nagiha and Rin. And Nagiha, they probably made an 80% start again, a low special. They all tend to be getting hit by a 10% proration nerf. And that's big. These are huge changes for Anji because it really reduces the risk of interacting with him on Fujin offense. And that's how his game plan worked, was the threat of like Fujin into nothing and resets and generating bar and mix-ups and then killing once you get the hit with these. But the fact that they don't counter hit, the fact that there's more scaling, really bad. That like throws a major wrench in his game plan. Right? They also increased the base damage scaling of Ko. Doesn't matter. Again, that's only if it's the first hit of a combo. That doesn't happen very much with Ko, but it happens sometimes, and definitely was fat damage before. Between supers and this, that could hurt some situations, but he gets this new move. He gets a DP, basically, out of spin. Yeah, they're really concerned about this move, I guess, affecting his power level too much in combination with the system changes. Yeah, they also nerfed his counter damage, which is kind of funny. Yeah, this move is interesting. I don't think it will matter that much because, like they mentioned here themselves, they're aware. If you spun something and you can close slash, it's strictly better than this move. This move is basically only useful if you're negative on spin and you want to RPS afterward, rather than just strictly, like, basically let the opponent take a turn. Which would only happen if he spun lights or projectiles, basically. So this move is a little niche, and I don't think as good as maybe they were concerned about. You know, Anji got hit hard. He's probably going to be down in the dumps again, if I had to guess. But, got some interesting changes. They made it so that her 5H, like, launch, it basically is a better starter. It launches more easily, which is pretty good for her. That move is really quite strong, I think. They raised the attack level of Chemical Love. That is kind of interesting. Oh, they reduced the attack level, excuse me, not raised it. God, that's definitely a big difference. Yeah. That basically means that it has less hits done, less blocks done. And easier for the opponent to punish you potentially if you block it close, if you weren't able to low profile it with your dash. Which goldlewis can for some reason. But anyway, they gave her this new move, which is like this plus like jump special in the air, which is very scary because it's like a pressure reset for her. And it looks like you might be able to combo off of it too. This new move has quite a lot of potential. We'll have to see how it comes out. In response, they nerfed dive. They made it so that it doesn't scale as well, and it has more recovery, and it leaves you closer, which is very good. Like, dive was underutilized by Enos in general. We don't really have a lot of good Enos, but the good Enos understand that this move was busted. Daru makes great use of it. I'm glad they nerfed it. It was kind of deserved. But again, redistributing her power, these are fine changes. Also reduced damage on her super. She's probably going to benefit from Wild Assault. We'll have to see which version she gets, but a character like Hino being able to reset pressure or combo or convert more easily is significant. What were they thinking with this character? What were they thinking? Yeah, they gave Jacko quite a set of buffs. So they made it so that 5k doesn't launch as high, get better combos off of it. Yeah, and this one I really I don't know what they were thinking. They made it so that if you swing into the minion shield, you get launched. Like if you're not getting hit, right? If you're hitting a minion, now you are. Yeah, they also made it chip more on block, which it already did a lot. This is a absolutely stupid buff. Like the minion shield is already very, very, very strong, and they decided to buff it. They buffed the wrong thing on her. I don't get it. They also made the bomb explosion a guard crush, which is interesting. I actually am a fan of that. I want that move to be used more. So, good for them. However, they made it so that her reversal super is now a strike and not a throw, which I believe means that there were some spots where you would block minion toss before, or I mean the minion shield. She would be able to guarantee super you, but now you get launched if you hit the shield. So that might not really change, but there might be some situations where this matters. Yeah. It doesn't really matter anyway that this was a throw, because like any time that it would be starting up, you'd have time to jump anyway, and being a throw wouldn't really matter. Like there weren't spots where you were forced to block and get hit because it's a throw. That wouldn't really happen. So yeah, this is an interesting change. So they also increased the effects of her this install, which is spooky, very, very spooky. They increased how long it lasts, but they in return reduced how long her like the super where she regens her bar lasts. And so that's an interesting set of changes. I kind of agree with this because this super wasn't really getting much utilization outside of like the very advanced jackos or using both supers at the same time. Yeah, I'm not really sure what effects this is going to have, but the minion command thing is like a stupid buff. I don't know what they're thinking with that. That alone is a huge buff, and again, many characters got neutral or negative changes, so Jacko will be a monster. HC did not get hit hard enough, in my opinion, but definitely get hit hard. So they made it so that his 6k, like, I don't really understand what this means. Collision hitbox no longer expands. I assume this basically just means, like, it has the effect of not knocking back as far, right? Which means that you can pressure into like pulling out the gun more easily. And they also made it so that when you combo into it, it doesn't push them as far back, which is annoying because that affects his gunless combos. If he gets better no gun conversions, that's always annoying. Always annoying. They also gave him better throw Oki potentially, and like a safe side swap, safe jump, which is annoying. They gave him this new input system. I'm not going to talk about that. That's not very relevant to balance. One thing they did that's big is they made it so that there's higher risk depletion on gunshot, and that it also like has mid combo gravity scaling that's worst, I think, is the way that I understand this. The thing that I don't understand about this change is that they mentioned this like I think the wording here is kind of off. I don't really understand what they mean. They said that he has much less damage if you get a starter with fire. I don't know if that applies to just steady aim or if that applies to 5H and not steady aim. Yeah. The effect is that it does less damage if you start with a bullet. If that is indeed true and it's greatly reduced, that's a huge nerf. That's really, really good. And that's probably why they're buffing at the ready and 6k. They want him to combo with normals more, which means that his conversions probably took a hit. Yeah. If he wants to get the same BS conversions, they're not doing 50% your HP. And wall breaking from anywhere, it might not be as worth it. Now, one thing I also want to mention about Happy Chaos is that he's majorly impacted by the system mechanic changes. Almost like some of them were designed with him in mind. Like, push block is obviously very good against him. Very, very good. And Wild Assault is good. Having better offense against a character that has some risky defensive options, that's good. But the biggest change by far is that both slump and break build almost half your burst bar back. Because even when this character wouldn't slump loop you, which is going to be completely dead, that's just not even good anymore at all, he would slump and then use the slump to refill his resources and then break anyway, right? But now that's not going to be a thing anymore, and that's huge. I cannot state enough how huge that is on top of getting the burst back for just wall breaks in general against this character. Absolutely huge against him. Going to hit him really hard. If this change is also significant, he's going down a peg, right? So they also reduced his super damage, very good, and they reduced the effect of his focus super, also very good. We all knew that was bullshit. It lasted too long. Now some baiken changes. These are kind of interesting. So 6k now has a stagger effect on grounded hit. I'm wondering if this lets her get a throw off of it on counter hit, which would be really, really huge. That would be great if she did. They also reduce the startup of Escabari. I don't know how the active frame changes, matter. I don't think it really does. But Escabari is plus and leaves you tethered. Being able to get it off more consistently is really good. This reduced startup might eliminate what existed before, which was like a fuzzy 6p tech kind of a thing against S and H Kabari, but now that's probably not going to be. However, they made it so that H Kabari scales harder and doesn't have counter hit. That is a big nerf, big nerf. That's where she got a lot of her damage. Both are seeing it on hit and comboing off of it on counter hit. I don't know if that follows up, or if that applies to the follow-up too. I assume it does, but we don't know for sure. Yeah, Yozansen launches now on hit, so like it's kind of odd the way this manifests. There are videos out there, but I think the effect is that she is at worse advantage now if she hits you with this, and she might not be able to do certain setups that she could before, and get the same combos off of it. Yeah, that's my understanding. That is my understanding, but I really don't know. I don't know what she'll be able to call. Like, will she still be able to get close slash? If she does like JH Yozansen and you got hit, I no idea. But definitely this reduces her pressure at the very least if you get hit by Araya Yozansen, and that's good. It might make some of her cross-up setups less good as well. They reduce the damage of her counter. That's decent. It was a little too high. And they reduce the damage of her supers. They made it so her gun super is 2 hits now. And I think that they made it so that it's like a combo tool, essentially, which is cool. Gun combos are cool, but I don't really know how this is going to manifest. It could be interesting, and it could solve a major issue for baiken, which is that her confirms are not very good at range. Now maybe she gets a more consistent full combo, because like it usually wasn't worth going into gun. It was just worth RCing instead and getting a conversion off of it, because baiken's conversion ability is good. Now you might be able to choose between, or always gun because it's better. Who knows? It's cool. Testament got a nice set of changes so that they made it so that their 5H, drop my bottle. Their 5H now doesn't push as far and it has a bit of a tumble, so it can combo more consistently. They made it so that Grave Reaper collision hitbox expands. I really don't know what that means. I just assume that it means like their hitbox now depends on like what stage of the startup you're in. Maybe it didn't before. I don't really know what this means, or like maybe it had a disjoint that it no longer does. No idea what that means. But they made it so the Air Grave Reaper has reduced knockback. Maybe that means you can combo off of it better, which is interesting because Testament has like a pseudo fuzzy with jump ins into Air Grave Reaper or like land 2k, and that might be more rewarding now. Could be good. Could be good. They made it so that the teleport can now be controlled where you go. That's a nice change for Testament. Kind of don't know why that wasn't really the case as much before, but stuff. Big thing they did is that they made Arbiter now launch. So I don't really know if that's going to make it so that Testament can combo off normal hit. I hope not. Or probably it's going to be able to get better combos off of a cursed hit, like a stained hit. The question is, will it actually matter? Like, will this result in much better Oki? Because like usually before, if you got hit by Arbiter, they were already setting up like Reaper into Crow Oki against you, but now this is probably going to make that much more of a thing. And maybe even get a combo after. And that's potentially scary on normal hit. That's quite scary, because at range, you can't do anything about this move. You can't punish it on block. You just got to roll with it. Yeah, they made it so that, like similar to Pod, non-invuln supers, if you get hit in the startup of it, you don't lose the meter. And they also reduce the damage of their super. Same stuff, so could be interesting changes for Testament. Nothing too huge, though. Okay, so Bridget changes. I'm not quite sure how to interpret them. First time reading them. Let's go through them together. Let's read it one by one. Close slash, same like weird hitbox expansion thing, whatever. It's just some kind of normalization they're doing, I guess. 5H has reduced knockback on hit. Does that matter? Does that matter? I don't think so, because they do 5HH anyway if they want to knock you back and set up OG. And on normal hit, like maybe this can let Bridget let her combo into roll more easily off of like counter hits, depending on the range. Isn't the biggest thing in the world. I think, but I don't really know, to be honest. 6H, they made it more of a combo tool. They made it so that on normal hit, it sounds like you can combo into roll or dive. Maybe that enables some new conversions for her. Interesting stuff. Now, if you get hit by roll on its own, the base scaling is higher. That's fine. They removed the counter hit of Scooter. They made the scaling worse. And they also made it easier to stuff. They made it bigger, which is good. Quite good. And they also made break follow-up a worse combo tool. This, I don't think matters all that much. It wasn't much of a combo tool to start with. They also reduced the counter hit. Yeah, they removed the counter hit properties on the Scooter follow-up. Shoot is like when she jumps up into the air. That's nice. That could pop up from time to time. It was annoying. They made it a worse starter as well. So kind of a double whammy there again. But the main thing that they did is they increased the upper travel speed on startup. So like the effect of this nerf, as I understand it, is that they want to make it harder to pressure after if you have meter. I think that it might mean that you can't do the 50-50 anymore off of it, which would be great. That would be really, really great. Reduce the scaling of Roger Dive. That's good because she had some messed up mix-ups with this, where this was a starter with meter. So good stuff to baby reduce damage. And a super. Yeah, super as well. Okay, so lightning round for the most buffed character of the patch. They fixed Sin's backdash. It has better invuln, reduced recovery, and a better hurt box. Those were the issues with it. Hopefully they're gone. Hopefully it's normal, if not better than normal now. They made it far/normal. It has less startup. If this is a 10 frame button or even 11 frame, it will be above average, I think. It's a solid far/. 5H has higher attack level. Basically means that the block stun is better on it, and the hit stun as well. It's easier to confirm, and maybe if you cancel into things from the first hit in particular, it's better. It might open up some new frame traps that didn't exist before. He actually uses his 5H a lot in pressure, so it's nice that they did something for it. Also made 2H easier to combo with. It doesn't push back as far horizontally. They made it so that his 6H does more wall damage, which is fine. I think you usually use it if you want wall damage in combos anyway. Beak Driver got hit with some scaling nerfs, both on the startup and the follow-up. And it is actually the same with his overhead and with Elk Hunt and the follow-ups there as well. But as a result, some of these got better frame data. For example, reduced startup on Elk Hunt. And yeah, also a bigger hitbox on his DP. But the trade-off is something huge, which is that he can now Kara RTL or Kara Tyrant Rave without consuming stamina. That is a massive, absolutely massive buff. Because anytime he wants to go into super, it cuts the amount of stamina he needs to use in half, which is massive. It lets him hit confirm into super off of actually like every single special. And all you need is 1 bar of stamina for it instead of 2. And you'll have extra stamina left over compared to afterward. And you'll have positive bonus and Wild Assault. That adds up to some really, really, really nice things for Sin. On top of him just being a functional character now. So yeah, his weaknesses got addressed. And he got on top of that a very nice buff, even though some of these changes were negative. They didn't change his hurt boxes. They didn't change the frame data on hit of some of these specials. That was an issue with him. But I think that these changes more than make up for it. So Sin definitely a big winner. Okay, so Bedman is another big winner here. Yep, they made it so that he had this weird bug with super jump where your inputs would just like get eaten. If you wanted to air dash, for example, which they also made faster. And they also made it more easy to cancel into normals or specials, which is a big thing for Bedman's movement. That was one of the things that made him some of the worst in the game. Yeah, his 2P got a higher attack level. It got more recovery though, which is okay. That's definitely a worthy trade-off because one of its issues was 2P not comboing into anything, and so his defense risk reward was horrendously skewed, on top of not having a reversal. However, he was a super heavyweight, and that getting changed will hurt him in some matchups. Characters will be able to combo him much more easily, and he still has no guts, so that's something to consider. Yeah, they buffed his 6P, they made it hit higher, that's good. They buffed his 2K, they made it start up faster. They made it so the far/slash tumbles on air hit, so maybe you can combo out of it sometimes, especially in the corner. That's typically where that kind of thing is used. 5H has a better hitbox, upward, vertically. 6H does more wall damage. That might hurt him a little bit. Not too much, though. And the biggest thing that they did by far is they made his 2H have a higher attack level on the final hit. So that means that he can cancel into his 2H, out of his 2H, into his specials much more easily. He's actually a character now, after 2H, potentially if he could go into guard crush off of that, or you have to RPS with him, that's really scary. They made it so the area, error gets kept after an area shift. What they mean by that is a wall break. After wall break, the timer on your error follow up, it's reset, and you keep it, which is very good if you're breaking with wall break or with 236S, which is like the little spinny move. Where's that 214S? I can't remember the input, but yeah. Oh yeah, it's 236S. It's down there. That's really good because that might mean with hard knockdown he can get some very nice setups and potentially nasty positive bonus loops, which this character already has, by the way. Disgustingly uninteractive offense if you don't have a DP. Some of the best guaranteed chip damage in the game, if not the best. So the fact that he might be able to set that up more consistently after wall break is very good for him. The implications of this change are quite significant, I think. The keep error change, especially if you go into install. Yeah. So I don't know what reduce amount of tension gauge consumed means if he's doing his like air needle. I don't know if that means like this doesn't use meter. So is that like if the opponent FDs it or something? I don't know. Incurs less negative value so we can camp with it harder basically, which is annoying. Yeah. In terms of the spin Beyblade, it has less startup and it also doesn't push the opponent as far back. I don't know if that means you can combo off of certain things. Like for example, they say 2P can now combo into that, which is crazy good. That's crazy good. That's actually a massive change. But yeah, I don't think that these weaknesses, potentially, if they ever were weaknesses, they'd only matter on block. And this move is already death on block. It already leaves you in close / punishable range, so it doesn't matter. The fact that you can combo off of lights into this is huge. That's absolutely huge for Bedman. Yeah, and the rest of these were just kind of universal changes or bug fixes. And Asuka basically got no changes. So that's it. That's the Season 3 patch. I'm going to do now a Day 0 tier list and a winners and losers tier list. Let's see how that comes out. Okay, fellas, here we are. If you're listening to my explanations, these should make sense. I'll just run through the tier list really quickly. These characters, they all got super buff. They're probably going to benefit from the system changes. And on top of that, particularly in the case of Jacko, they're benefiting from a lot of their worst matchups getting nerfed while they kind of stay the same. So, or improve. And that's really nice. In terms of the winners, these 3 characters mostly got buffed. They don't really have to explain why they're winners. They're just going to be better than before. But Chipp, he's mainly a winner because he didn't get nerfed. And he didn't get hard nerfed. And he deserved a hard nerf. For sure. He really needed to be tuned back. And I think these new systems are going to benefit him a lot and potentially even compensate for the nerfs that he did receive. Not to mention other characters getting nerfed that it's good for him. So now for the somewhat winners, it kind of depends on how things play out. goldlewis, that faust / nerf hurts, man. But the AirBTs could be a big deal. The super nerf also hurts for him. But again, some of his bad matchups got worse, particularly like these 3 at the bottom and Nago, like all 4 of his absolute trash tier matchups, except Bridget and Chipp, I guess, got hit pretty hard. And that's potentially very good for him. On top of the AirBT changes, we'll have to see how those play out. Yeah, Gio. Yeah, she very much depends on, like, she's probably my most uncertain one. She's really dependent on how her new functions, her command dash, how that changes her routing and her damage and her reward. I don't know. Axel is mostly unchanged, which I think is fine. He got some slight buffs, so overall, kind of a winner. The average character, I think, are like the stronger characters, I should say. The average strong character got nerfed this patch, I think, and that's good. That's what a patch should do. Yeah, Millia kind of got minor changes, but again, that's fine. She didn't get any nerfs, but she has a system to work with now. This could potentially be bad for her, though. So that's one thing I want to add there. And Soul, again, kind of minor changes, but getting Fafnir as an approach tool could be really scary. It really could. Yeah. Asuka basically didn't really change, but he's like super good. Don't get me wrong. This is not a tier list. This is like how the patch impacts them. Yeah. And I know I kind of said Chipp benefits by not really getting nerfed. You can apply the same reasoning to Asuka somewhat, so you could say he's higher than this, but that's all I'll say about him. Kai, I think the Dipper change hurts him. The proration changes hurt him, but system changes are nice for him. And I think that his character, like his poke game, got better. And that's pretty good, especially / getting reduced startup. That's excellent. Like him, I'm not sure how she's going to get impacted by the patch, but if she can get her tethers more consistently, that's good, especially if she can get that counter hit 6k into a throw. That would be very, very nice for her. But I don't know how these ons and changes are going to play out. That might make her a lot worse than she currently is. And my uncertainty on that, compared to the slight buff she did get, is why I make her uncertain. Kabari getting no counter hit is definitely a nerf, though. Yeah, and Bridget, again, same kind of thing. Not sure how this is going to change. I pray to God that scooter bullshit 50-50 is gone. That would, curse of Ra to Bridget players abusing that. It's like the scrubbiest thing ever. If it is, this is a net loss for her. Even with the other like changes that she got that were kind of minor. Nago losing 6H. Nago losing 6H. Nago losing 6H OTG. I challenge you to say that 5 times fast, by the way. That is a tongue twister. Is really bad. If he can get plus guard crush Oki, it might be okay for him. But he got some other nerfs as well, even though Beyblade's low, which is really good. Which is why he's not like super a loser in this patch. And if he can get plus guard crush setups off his wild assault, strike throws, that's really good as well. So he might end up okay. But the 5k nerf hurts. The 6H OTG effective removal hurts. Those are significant. Yeah, and Ram, I think no doubt, getting her flip nerfed, getting her damage nerfed for supers, getting reduced move speed, that comes across as a nerf. But she's still Ram, and she got a new move. Depending on how good that is, it's not near the league of what some of these other characters got. Anji, like, I don't know why they did the changes they did with Anji. They must be really concerned about the system changes and how that new move affects how he plays. But they hit him really hard. Yeah, taking away counter hit. I think what they did is they basically just like universally said, okay, special moves with follow-ups, we're taking away their counter hit properties. And that just got grafted onto Anji for some reason. He just got thrown in with the rest of them. When Fujin is not Band Revolver. Fujin is not Chipp Rekka. Fujin is not Ram Rekka. But I guess to the devs, it is. And that's unfortunate. So he's definitely a net loser because of that. And Mei, yeah, the Dolphin change in particular is the biggest one for her. It being closer, being able to pressure or even punish her. On IB, you can get a throw now, for example. That's big. Combined with the 6H nerf and her conversions and damage going down in supers, she's just a much weaker version of what she was previously. The new move probably won't make up for that, but I don't know. But the fact that she has it is the only thing keeping her out of deserved. These characters got hit really hard. Yeah, Leo HTP being gone, massive nerf. Zato Eddie Timer being almost doubled, massive nerf. Flight being cut in half, massive nerf. NHC, according to the way they wrote it, like the system changes hit him super hard, and also the scaling on gunshot starters. That could make a big difference for this character, and I'm really hoping he's bad because this character is bullshit. He shouldn't exist. He just straight up shouldn't. Like, we all know this. So, yeah. That's my changes tier list, my patch impactful tier list. Let's make a day 1 tier list just for fun. Okay, fellas. Not my most descriptive tier list that I've ever made. That's because I think that they brought the balance closer overall in this patch. Let's talk about it for a sec. So double S tier. I think that these are like the gods of the new world. Characters that either really benefit from system mechanic changes, or the characters that got buffed or a slap on the wrist when most characters got their direct power levels reduced. That's particularly why Asuka's up there. I think we're seeing a lot of Asuka now that the Zato players are dooming. Yeah, let's talk about S tier for a second. So Soul, already really good. In the current version, some slight nerfs to Bandit Revolver, but if Fafnir is truly an approach option and he has the wild assault conversion ability combined with his very freeform combo game and strong combos, I think that's really good for him. I think Soul comes out a winner for sure, and he's going to be really strong. He could even be an SS if Fafnir is good enough. We'll have to see. Some major changes from last patch though. Sin, Bedman, and Pot, the undoubtable bottom 3 of the last version, are now in S tier. I think Bedman and Pot just got enormously buffed. They're just buffed so hard. Bad matchups got nerfed, and they just really benefit from like system mechanics. They all do, all of them. I think that especially in the case of Bedman and Pot, pushes them up to be really considerable threats. This is a bit of a hot take, and it's a literal day -2 tier list, so take it with a grain of salt. But I see their potential. I see the circle. Yeah, Bridget is still going to be really good. She just might have lost her scooter 50-50, but that's pretty much all that she would have lost, and that means that she's still bullshit and broken, and she could probably be an SS, but I'm being generous here. Millia was sleeper, I think, but the fact that she came out pretty much unscathed from the patch is good for her. she's gonna be pushed up as a result because a lot of these characters got some of their tools adjusted or weakened and she didn't. That's good for her. Yeah, and Sin, of course, hugely buffed. I don't really need to explain that too much. A tier. Oh, there's so much uncertainty, not only in this tier but in the whole list. So again, this is kind of memes. I'm gonna like compare it to how the meta actually develops later on. Come back to this video for fun. But yeah, Geo, I have no idea. It depends on her command dash. Without the command dash, I'd say that's probably where she belongs, assuming her other changes. Mei got hit hard, and I think this is actually where she belongs. The nerfs were significant enough to push her down here, especially for Dolphin Pressure getting weakened, but that new special could shake things up. Yeah, Axel didn't really get buffed hard enough, I think, justify moving him from A to S. It's basically where he was pre-patch. Kai, I think that like losing Dipper RC potentially, or like the damage on it, was a nerf. I'd consider this character S, I'd say, in this kind of list in the current version, but the fact that he lost that is pretty big, even in exchange for his other buffs and also proration on his specials. That hurts him. That hurts him. Yeah, I think in his tier placement. goldlewis? He could be S, I think. It really depends on how good the air BTs are, but the far slash nerf hurts. And like the 2S and 2K buffs, I don't think they're going to matter that much. They could, though. I could be wrong. And there's an argument to be made. He's almost S in this current version, but like this version, his matchup issues are so bad. The only argument that he goes to S, I think, is that the system mechanic changes benefit him a lot. Mostly because he's building bursts disproportionately and his bad matchups got nerfed. Those are the big things in goldlewis's favor this patch. Yep. A Testament is no longer trash, probably. But you know what? We're moving Testament down here. Probably just not on the level of these other characters, even still, leaving a lot to be desired. Yeah. Zato got hugely nerfed, but he's still Zato. I don't think he's actually going to be Zato 1. You know, there are still going to be rounds where you get steamrolled by this character. He's still going to be able to use Wild Assault to get Eddie back time to time. He's going to have things going for him. Yeah, same with Ram. Like, even though she got overall nerfed, she's still Ram. She still, like, gets super easy wall breaks, and she got a new move, and it might impact things, even in light for other nerfs. Chaos, on the other hand, got hugely nerfed. I'm assuming that what they said, the strong words they chose, are accurate to describe, for example, the damage to combos with bullet starters. And also they nerfed roll. I didn't mention this. They presumably made a roll easier to throw on cross up and perhaps more reactable when it crosses up, which is deserved. Super stupid. But it's still happy chaos. Again, this character still has like tap dust, shot. This character still has like unseeable, loopable fuzzies, all kinds of bullshit like that. And so I just think the fact that those exist mean that he can never be bottom tier. Yeah. And in light of the system changes. Baiken, I really don't know, to be honest. I'm just assuming she got a bit worse than before. That's pretty much it with her. Faust, he just got strict buffs, but nothing insane, you know. Could be an S, who knows. Yeah, and the B tier, these are the characters that leave things to be desired, but this is very uncertain. I want to stress that. This is very uncertain. Well, even, like, Johnny's isn't even out yet, but I assume he's probably going to be like high A, low S, if I had to guess, on this list. But who knows? But we'll just throw him an A for now. But anyway, that's going to do it for this one, Golds. I know this was a long one, so if you stuck with me to the end, appreciate it. And yeah, that's that.